Hello, everybody. My name is Linda Abraham. I'm the president and founder of Accepted, and I'm going to be presenting Get Accepted to Chicago booth today. I want to welcome you all and thank you very much for coming. Before we get started, I always like to learn a little bit about my audience. So I'd like you, in your question window, which we're going to use for your questions as well as your answers, I'd like you to tell me where you're located. Just, again, I like to learn a little bit about my audience. Okay? City and state if you're in the United States, city and country outside the United States. Seattle, Washington, India, Chicago, India, Boston, Massachusetts, Bangalore, Houston, Pune, India, South Africa. Oh, we really got an international audience. San Francisco, fellow Californian, Caracas, Venezuela. So we have Asia, South America, Africa, North America. Anybody in Europe? Bangalore, India, Czech Republic. Okay, so now we have Europe represented. Lagos, Nigeria. You know, I've been doing chats and webinars probably for 17 years now, and I always get a kick out of the international nature of the audience. Al-Khobar, Saudi Arabia. Whoa, okay. Anybody else want to share where they're located? All right, let's move on. Now that I know where you're geographically located, I'd also like to know where you're located in the application process. I'm going to launch a poll, which should be on your screen momentarily. And I'd like you to choose the one description that best identifies you. Applied round 1, applied to some round 1 and applying to others round 2, planning to apply round 2 and round 3, and the fourth option, planning ahead for next year. Okay, we have a wonderful audience. We're at about 70%. Can we get it over 80%? All right, 76%. Can we get it over 80%? Again, the options are applied already, applied to some round 1 and others round 2, planning to apply round 2 and 3, planning ahead for next year. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. With 82% having voted, here are the results. So nobody only applied round 1, which is fine. 29% applied round 1 and are applying to others round 2. 48% the plurality are applying round 2 and 3, and 23% are planning ahead for next year. Okay, welcome all of you. That's very interesting. Okay, and then how many of you, or I should say, how committed? Well, let me share the results. There you can see them. Okay. And next question for you folks is, how committed are you to applying to Chicago booth? Okay, and the options are, you already did. Obviously, that's not going to be relevant to most of you. Definitely, maybe, and doubt it, but my mom so wants me to try. Okay, we have 78% having voted, 80% having voted, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm closing the poll, and with 88% having voted, here are the results. 69% are definitely applying, so this is a very committed group. That's great. And 31% are in the maybe category, and nobody is in the first or the fourth category. Okay, so again, you're a pretty committed group, and you know what you want. And the last question I have for you at this stage is, how many of you are in financial services, consulting, marketing, high tech, or other? All right, we're at 73% having voted. Can we get it over 80%? 78%, and now at 80. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm closing the poll, and here are the results. So 52% of you are in financial services. 24% are in consulting, 6% are in marketing, 6% are in high tech, and 12% are in other. Okay, not surprisingly, they have a lot of people, the majority of you are in financial services. Okay. Now let's move on. You came here to learn something, and it's my turn to share some of that with you. I do want to note that at the end of the webinar, I'm going to give away a few copies of MBA Admissions for Smarties in a contest. It'll be a prize for a contest, and you'll have a chance to win. I also know that typically I announce an offer. I shouldn't say, not all the time, but if I have a special offer for webinar attendees, I usually save it for the end of the webinar. And I've been informed that sometimes people are so anxious about the offer I'm going to make. Some of them say, forget it, I'm just going to, they can't really concentrate. Well, I want you to be able to concentrate on the webinar, so I'm going to tell you about the offer now. The offer is $300 off any of our MBA application packages. The coupon code is BOOTH300. It ends on the 15th. In other words, you have a week to perhaps talk to a consultant, get comfortable, and purchase and save $300. The URL is accepted.com/MBA package. I'm going to be discussing today in the webinar a comprehensive approach that we use with our package clients. And again, you'd have assistance with that if you purchase this package. Okay, let's go on. I'm going to go through during the webinar 4 key elements in my 4-part framework for MBA acceptance, and I'm going to apply that framework specifically to Chicago Booth's application. This is a comprehensive approach to the application process. You can use the strategy framework on any other top MBA program, but today's focus is going to be Booth. In the course of the webinar, I'm going to, at several points in time, issue warnings and caveats and things like that, rabbit holes you don't want to go down. And I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to start with it right now. Some people, some applicants that I talk to, people who inquire about our services, they ask questions like, how can I spin this? What can I do? How can I cover up a blemish? It's not about cover up and it's not about spin. Makeup really will not do it. Trust me, you guys don't know yet, but I do. It doesn't hide the wrinkles, okay? What you need to do is submit a substantive, compelling application. And by substance, I mean competitive qualifications and an effective presentation of those qualifications. In other words, you need to show fit. You need to show that you belong at Chicago Booth. Now, in the question window, I'd like you to give me, basically in tweet length, the old tweet or the new tweet, how you intend to show you belong at Chicago Booth. You must have been thinking about it since so many of you are really, really committed to applying to Chicago Booth. So how do you intend to do it? If you could share your thoughts in the question window, I would appreciate it. Okay, Shirayu says show analytical thinking. If I mispronounce somebody's name, please forgive me. Show that flexible curriculum is a good fit for me. Very good, Juliet. Finance, 3 promotions, 3 years. Apurv, that's one element, sure. Collaborative, go-getter, experienced in multiple domains. Okay, that's part of it. That's part of it. Good, Benoy. Anybody else want to share? Show the culture fits me. Very good, Shanshan. Anybody else? Worked in consulting and NGO education, hence flexible curriculum is a fit. Good, good. Okay, that's very good. Anybody else? Last one. Good, Abhishank. One more, collaborative spirit. Okay, Diego. All right, you're all hitting on one element. And what I want, if you take away anything from today's webinar, I want you to take away this. It's not one element. Again, this is a comprehensive approach. It's all 4 parts of my framework that you're going to need to have in your application to be successful. Okay, so for Booth, Booth's criteria says it boils down to curriculum, community, and career. That's what they say on their website. I talk about a 4-part framework, and you'll see the parallels between my framework and Booth's criteria as we go through the webinar. The first part of the framework is demonstrate that you can do the work and excel. One of Booth's stated criteria is, as I said a minute ago, curriculum, and the sub-item is academic preparedness. So you must show that you can handle the curriculum in terms of your academic preparedness, your intellectual curiosity, and your communication skills. The easiest way to show that preparedness is through your undergraduate transcript and your test score, whether it's the GMAT or the GRE. And ideally, and this is the ideal, not necessarily, they don't get it on everybody, You want to be at or above the averages for accepted students in both your grades and test scores. If not, how can you convince Chicago Booth to accept you with below average? Let's start with grades. Well, first of all, as I'm sure you all realize, especially the 59% of you or 52% of you that are in financial services, realize that averages are what they are because approximately half the people enter with below average grades or test scores. Booth's average is a 3.6 GPA. Now, does that mean that if you have a 3.5, you're at a big disadvantage, or a 3.4? Probably not. But as you move away, as you get farther away from that average, especially below it, and if your test score is also below average, the harder it is it's going to be to demonstrate that you can do the work and compete in the student body that Chicago admits. So what do you do if your GPA is a little bit below average? You're going to want to take business-related courses and earn A's in them if you have a problematic GPA or a lack of quant classes. If there were extenuating circumstances that no longer exist, or that you have learned how to handle without any difficulty that contributed to your low GPA, let the admissions committee know about those circumstances and that context. Also, if relevant to your goals, consider certificates like the CFA. If your quant skills are weak, but your grades were good and you're the proverbial poet, you had a humanities background or a social science background without a lot of quant classes or a lot of quant work, consider something like mbamath.com or quant classes at local colleges like Stats for Business, Calculus if you have the prerequisites, Economics, Accounting 1, and they're also online. There are a lot of courses in financial modeling, etc. Realize that Booth is a particularly demanding and rigorous program quantitatively, so they are going to be looking at your quant skills and they're going to want to know that you can handle them out. Now, I mentioned earlier a high test score can mitigate. For the top 10, including Booth, you want to be at the 80th percentile, ideally in both quant and verbal, whether your grades are good or below average. If your test score is considerably below on either verbal or quant, consider a retake. Now you see on the screen that Booth's average GMAT this past year was a 730. So I'm not talking about getting, a little bit above. I'm talking about a lot above if you're trying to, again, mitigate low GPA. If you're not sure whether to retake, we had a webinar on that topic. I'm not going to go into it more, and we will be sending out these URLs so you don't have to be jotting them down madly, okay? If you're not sure whether to retake or not, please see that GMAT score, which is the URL on the screen. Also, I forgot to mention earlier, we do have a handout for you. If you haven't, it's on the handout section of your dashboard. I would recommend that you download it and print it out. You can take notes and get more out of the webinar if you do so. You can also use the back of the worksheet for, if you don't print on both sides, to jot down ideas that may come to you in the course of the webinar. And also at some points, I'll ask you to jot down things for yourself. Your academic preparedness is generally evident in your transcript and test scores, the objective elements of the application, the stuff that everybody likes to point to. If those are not strong, then you need to show it somehow, somewhere else. But somehow, some way, you need to show you can do the work effectively and not struggle with either basic math or communications. That's simply foundational. It's a requirement. 2, you have to have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from Booth and how you intend to use it. And again, going back to Booth's 3 criteria, career is the last of them. Curriculum was the first, career is their third. And chronologically, I think for Booth that makes sense. For you as an applicant, I think career can be second or first in some cases. You have to have a clear, realistic idea why you want an MBA from Booth and how you intend to use it. As I mentioned, career is the second of Booth's criteria, the last of Booth's criteria, and you'll see on there I've listed the sub-items that Booth lists: sense of personal direction, realistic expectations for the MBA. Booth wants to admit people with those qualities. Therefore, you need to be prepared to show them. And indeed, the classic short-term MBA goal is, what do you want to do and in what industry do you want to do it? And that's exactly what Booth asks in the application windows that it has in related to goals in its application. And you may say, well, that's just for statistical reasons. Well, yeah, it's for statistical reason, but they also want to know that they can help you achieve your goal, and they're real clear about it. In addition, they give you another 250 characters, which is almost the new tweet. And what is your immediate post-MBA goal, and what is your long-term post-MBA goal? Don't just repeat what's in the boxes, okay? Give them some more information. Go deeper, discuss greater purposes or motivations or challenges. Again, what you want to do is one thing, what you want to achieve is something else, and perhaps that can go into the boxes. Maybe your motivation for pursuing these goals can go into the boxes. In terms of the long-term goal, show a little ambition there. If they want to admit people who are going to do great things. Well, you're not going to do great things by accident. Very few people do. Most of them do have a dream, a vision, some way that they would like to contribute and make society a better place. If you are attempting to change both industry and function, perhaps your short-term goal will be to change one, and a long-term goal will reflect the second part of that change. It's another way that you can show realistic and attainable goals, as well as ambition. The bottom line here is that the schools want to know they can help you succeed. And if you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else, as Yogi Berra says. Booth asks explicitly about your goals in its application and may also ask in its interviews, so really be prepared. The key point here is that your application as a whole must allow the admissions committee to see how your previous education and experience, when combined with the Booth MBA education, can help you get where you want to go. That's the second part of the framework. The first part, again, was academics, show that you can do the work. Second part is a realistic, attainable, and still ambitious goal. The third part, show that you share Booth's values and can contribute to its community. The second of its third evaluative criteria. Now, several of you, when I asked how do you intend to show that you belong at Booth, you mentioned very correctly flexibility, an ability to handle flexibility, and that's really important to Booth, along with some other elements that we're going to discuss. Now, Booth likes to talk about the Booth approach, the Chicago approach, analytical inquiry, intellectual freedom, and a collaborative community. This is a culture that starts with inquiry, it demands curiosity, and provides intellectual freedom to nurture the inquiry and curiosity. At the same time, Booth claims our community is intensely collaborative, which is a point that several of you mentioned. Check the ego before you apply. Let's dive into these three qualities a little bit more: the analytical inquiry, intellectual freedom, and collaborative community. Let's dive into those a bit more. Analytical inquiry at Booth is data-driven. They have a very rigorous approach to data analysis and use of various analytical tools. They want a questioning, challenging mind, what Booth calls intellectual curiosity. And you, as an applicant in your application, need to look for opportunities to show the curiosity that animates Booth and the love of inquiry that animates Booth. And don't think of this just in terms of the essay or just in terms of this box. You may not be able to show everything all the time. So again, the application to a certain extent is a puzzle, and each piece reveals something else and paints a total picture. So look for opportunities to reveal that curiosity. Who is Booth looking for? People who can handle ambiguity and intellectual freedom. That's the flexibility many of you mentioned, who reflect a willingness to take responsibility for their decisions, specifically their education. And again, that goes to that highly flexible curriculum. You can take required courses in your core areas at your level, so accountants don't need to take basics of financial accounting, for example. And Booth actually has only one required course: Leadership, Effectiveness, and Development, or LEAD. And that teaches key management skills such as negotiation, team building, giving feedback, the so-called soft side of management. And it also reflects the importance of leadership to Booth, which is the first quality that Booth looks for under its second criterion of community. What does all this intellectual freedom imply to you as an applicant? You need to show you can handle it. How have you handled ambiguity and choice in the past? The same with analytical inquiry or rigor. When have you used your knowledge or data and resulting insight to solve a problem, to approve a process, to initiate a project with impact? This is something that when we work with our clients, we're constantly looking for in the resume, in the essays, in the boxes. Are you showing impact? Are you showing you made a difference? And that's what you have to do in your applications. Can you handle a tension between community and debate, a culture that simultaneously encourages challenge as well as collegiality? Now, I'd like you to take a minute and either on the back of your worksheet or on a piece of paper, I don't really care where, jot down times when you demonstrated or engaged in critical analysis, intellectual freedom, or collaborative community. Now, for those of you in financial services, I'm going to guess, or consulting, which is the overwhelming majority of you, critical analysis is going to be really, really easy. So focus more on the intellectual freedom or the collaborative community elements. When have you worked well in that kind of environment? When have you taken advantage of intellectual freedom to explore a new area, to develop a new solution, something along those lines? And this is for you. You don't have to put it in the question window. We'll get back to the question window in a minute. This is for you. Now, as you continue writing, I'll give you another few seconds to jot some ideas down. I want you to also note the difference between mouthing platitudes, spitting back the website, and showing that you share the values. The former, the platitudes, etc., that is just putting lipstick on a pig. And you know what? It's really ugly. Spamming them with phrases from their website or mantra-like repetition of inquiry, insight, and impact, or culture of debate and questioning simply will not do it. But examples in your essays and job descriptions, bullet points in your resumes, feedback from your recommenders, especially if they use examples, your responses to interview questions should in total show that you both have what Booth is looking for, can contribute to the Booth community, and can benefit from what Booth offers. To me, Booth is about assuming responsibility in the face of ambiguity and risk. It is about questioning and analyzing, but also about doing and making a difference. So you don't have to spit back phrases at all. Another warning, if you focus on rankings or brand, you'll be obscuring this fit aspect of admissions, and that means you're focusing on the wrong things. Yes, I know Booth is number 2 in The Economist, number 2 in Businessweek and Forbes, and number 3 in U.S. News. But telling them that just means you're telling them what they already know and nothing about you. And I might add that if you focus on that, you're also not going to be focusing or thinking about how are you going to be demonstrating what Booth wants. And that's what you should be thinking about. That's what we tell our clients to focus on. We rarely talk about rankings with our clients. So focus on fit. If you focus on the rankings, you're going to blend in and bore. You want to stand out in a positive way. You want to show that you have the distinctive experience and perspective to contribute to the Booth community. That's what we work with our clients about doing. Booth has lots of applicants and it can be choosy. With the current application volume, it rejects more than 3 out of every 4 applicants, which is actually better than its peer institutions, but still very tough competition. It actually had a 23.6% acceptance rate for the entering class of 2016. I haven't seen the acceptance rate yet for the entering class of 2017. And this leads to my last strategic point and the last part of the 4-part framework. Demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute to the Booth community and ultimately make the school proud to have you as an alumnus. So what is Booth how does that translate to Booth's criteria? What does Booth talk about? Booth wants to see a track record of success professionally and, quote, philanthropic tendencies, close quote, as Booth says, through your resume, essay, activity history, interview, letters of recommendation. Show that you are a person with an inquiring mind who draws insights from that inquiry and then acts on them and has impact. So where have you made an impact? I'd like to see that in the question window, and I'll give you feedback on what you write. Supported educational initiatives and scholarship awards nationally. Lilia, I'd like to see more detail on that. What was the result of the initiatives that you supported? Use data analysis and problem solving to work towards eradicating educational inequity. Abhishank, that's good. Again, I'd like to know the results. Okay, did more people lower down the economic scale end up graduating high school, for example? All right, now this is better. Raise 10,000 in funds. I'm not sure if it's dollars or another currency for a school in Chile for the native community. Excellent. Okay, how many kids were served? $10,000 is 10,000 whatever. Again, I don't know the currency is good, but what was the impact? Elevating a non-performing team to a better performing one. All right, that's way too general. What was the size of the team? What better performing in one sense? Did they sell better? Did they produce more code? I mean, give me something, okay? More detail. Impact and making working with children in underserved areas, specifically reading. Okay, how many kids? Did they get up to grade level in a certain amount of time? You need to be more specific, okay? Let's see. I made an impact with creating a new division in the Israeli army that dealt with diplomatic issues that were not being handled before. Alana, very good. Again, I'd like to know if you led a team involved in that. If you could, obviously not here, but if you could somehow talk about impact more. It sounds very interesting, though. Excellent. Okay, Marquetta, this looks more interesting. It helped women to find their mentors, and 80% felt more comfortable to reach out to them on their own. Okay, that could be developed, and these are the kinds of things, again, that we push our clients to do. All right, Joyce came back to me, improved reading scores at the school, served 10 students per school year, grades K through 12. Okay, I would say, improved reading scores by X% or so much more than the norm or something like that, okay? All right, let's see. I hope you guys are getting the idea. This is the kind of feedback that we give our clients. We push them to be more specific so that they can stand out more in the applicant pool. And that's what you need to do because, and you'll see why this is so important in just a minute. These are the events and experience you want to highlight throughout your application. And let's touch on work experience for just a minute. Okay, so schools are really interested in what you've done professionally. They're going to want to look at your work experience and evaluate it in terms of the quantity of work experience that you've had and the quality. Because they look at that and they see, are you going to be able to contribute to their class based on what you've done? Now, again, people tend to point to the amount of work experience. The average amount of work experience at Booth is 5 years. However, that's easy. So 3 to 8 years is in the ballpark. 5 years, that's the average. Very easy, done, check it off the box. You can look at it on your own. What you tend to ignore is the qualitative aspect of work experience. So what is qualitatively strong or competitive work experience at Booth or other top MBA programs? It shows the leadership, contribution, initiative, and innovation that Booth values, or at least some of those qualities, and above average progression on the job. If you're just kind of checking the boxes, you're not standing out. They're going to want to see how you've gone above and beyond. Now, so in terms of ability to stand out, you want to have done something that is noteworthy and have had impact. But then there comes also an issue of presentation. And this is what the little exercise that we just did, I'm trying to show you that it's not just that you've had an increase in responsibility, but what have you done with that? If you've taken initiative, what difference have you made? Okay, so Abhishek posts increased student attendance from 70% to 90% across 84 schools through creating and implementing an analytical tool. That's impressive. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. I've been promoted in 8 months, even though the company guidelines says 1 year at least. Okay, that's also good. I'd also like to know what you did to get the promotion. Okay, why did they recognize you? Now, I'd like to do another little exercise with you. And again, this is also about writing in specifics. And here you have multiple choices. Please indicate on the screen or just check, as you did before in the earlier polls, but you can choose more than one. Choose all that apply to you. I work in finance or consulting, and obviously we already know we have a lot of those. I have traveled outside my home country. I have volunteered during and or since college. Okay? Right. If any of the above apply to you, please indicate, and again, you can choose more than one. We have 69% having voted. Maybe none of them apply to some of you. I don't know. All right, I'm going to close this poll in a few seconds. 5, 4. Anybody else want to vote? 3, 2, 1. Great, you're a wonderful audience. Here are the results. So 65%, 5% of you work in or have worked in finance or consulting. Actually, it was a little higher earlier, but we have more people here. I have traveled outside my country is 77%, and 79% of you volunteer in some capacity. Okay, and that's with 84% of you having voted. Great. Thank you so much for your participation. Here is the last poll for the webinar. How many of you work for Facebook, went trekking in New Zealand, or volunteered in Houston after the devastating hurricane there earlier this year? Now, I don't expect as many people to vote. But and again, you can choose more than one if it's relevant. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Closing the poll. And I'm sharing the results. Nobody here works for Facebook. 23% went trekking in New Zealand. 23% volunteered in Houston after the devastating earthquake. I find that actually rather hard to believe, but this is the Houston part. But if it's true, that's wonderful, because I know we have a very international audience. But that's with 26% having voted, and I believe that for the other 74% of you, probably none of this applied. So let me ask you, and this I'd like you to answer in the question window, what is the difference between the first set of questions and the second set of questions? Specifics, exactly, Foss. Exactly, Alana, sorry. Bill Noy, yes. Second set, okay, second set is more unique. And what happens, second set of what distinguishes was used. Manaza, you got it. The second set of questions, what happens when you talk in specific terms? Actually, Abhishank, what I was trying to show is that if you talk and write in generalities, then you're not very different. But if you write in specifics, then suddenly you're very distinctive. Is that, raise your hand if that's clear. You can click on the hand icon, but that's what I mean, raising your hand. Is that, I think this little exercise really shows that. You're very welcome, Amrita. I'm so glad. Yeah, if you write in specifics, you're automatically going to distinguish yourself. You don't have to climb Mount Everest. You don't have to swim the English Channel. You don't have to, though it would be wonderful if you did, invent the cure for cancer. But you need to write your story in specific terms so that you can stand out. Why is distinctive contribution so important? Well, first of all, Booth says so. It wants people with, and here I'm quoting, a unique perspective and a track record of success. The second reason distinctive contribution is important goes back to that good old acceptance rate, because Booth, like all elite MBA programs, has too many qualified applicants. Again, the acceptance rate per US News for 2016 was 23.6%, which means that, if my math serves me correctly, 74.4% are, no, 75.4% are rejected. Somebody else can do the math. Whatever it is, it's a lot of people that get rejected. 76.4% are rejected. The implication here is that there is no reason to admit someone without something distinctive to contribute. They have no benefit to accepting someone lacking a history of leadership and growth in multiple arenas, and again, a record of past impact and contribution. Even at a data-driven program like Booth, acceptance is not just about the numbers. Now let's review the 4 strategic steps you need to think about before and while putting your application together. 1, demonstrate you can do the in-class work and excel. 2, have a realistic, clear idea why you want an MBA from Booth and how you tend to use it. And again, it has to be realistic, attainable, and at the same time, a little bit ambitious. 3, show that you share Booth's values and meet its criteria and would fit into its community. And 4, demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute to Booth's community and ultimately make the school proud. Now let's look at the specific elements in the Booth application. I've already touched on grades and transcripts as well as Booth values. Let's look at the other elements and start with a job and activity history. You must make the most of the 1 to 2 page resume to show impact and contribution, and that you belong at an institution proud of its inquisitive nature and analytical culture. For Booth, the job history gives you a wee bit of room to elaborate on your work experience. In the job history, you have 700 characters for the job description and 50 words to describe why you left. In the job description, focus on the things that we've discussed, but don't just describe your responsibility, describe your achievements, and thereby reveal your responsibilities. Quantify impact whenever possible. Again, I showed you what I was talking about a little bit earlier. Obviously, be succinct. The second set of Booth's criteria is community, and Booth asks you to list all community service activities and gives a bunch of instructions. I'm going to ask you to look at that in the application itself. But Chicago Booth, and here I'm quoting, values community involvement, and we know it comes in many different forms. Tell us how you have been involved in your community. You can include, as you'll see on the screen, public service, extracurricular activities, and also college activities. And keep in mind here, involvement and activity is active. It is not the same as being a member, which means that you carry a card in your wallet or have a password on your stored somewhere that you always forget about, or even attend meetings. We're talking about assuming responsibility, participation, and leadership. And these boxes are great places for you to show that you have the leadership and teamwork, interpersonal skills that Booth seeks, as well as that you've been a person who makes a difference. Booth also asks, outside of the activities and professional experiences that you have already shared, please share hobbies and areas of interest that are important to you. What do you like to do for fun? Succinct, straightforward answer. That's what you want to provide here. And again, you don't have a lot of room. That's about 100 words. You may, if relevant, be able to show impact or achievement here, but that would only be if it's relevant to what you like to do. If you don't always have to, you can kick back in this question is what I'm trying to say. If you have had impact in your answer to this question, that's okay too. Let's move on to the essays. Booth has one required and one optional essay, the Chicago Booth presentation essay, and you're going to want to view this collection of shared Booth moments and choose the moment that best resonates with you and tell us why. And there are the guidelines on the screen. Choose the format that, again, works best for you. You can determine your own length. If it's Word, you have the flexibility. You're expected to use your best judgment, not worst. You're not writing War and Peace. You're not writing the great American novel. The essays, whatever format you choose, should complement other elements of the application, answer the question posed, relevant to the moment that you're choosing, and reveal something distinctive and interesting about you. This is a great place to show fit and to reveal the qualities that Booth values, at least some of them. So the first thing you're going to have to figure out is, what are you more comfortable with and what will best express what you're trying to convey. First, I think first you're going to choose which question to focus on. Which picture does resonate with you and reminds you of an experience or event that you want Booth to know about? And what do you really want Booth to know about that isn't reflected in your application already? Also think about who you are as Booth advises, what has influenced you, and then what is important given Booth's values and criteria and all the things that we've been talking about. Think of Booth's values: analytical inquiry, intellectual freedom, and collaborative community, or as criteria: curriculum, community, career. What are you truly proud of that would be of interest given Booth's criteria and cultural foundations? And again, that isn't gone into in any depth anywhere else in the application. And let's face it, the rest of the application doesn't give you much room for depth. So you could focus on context for events listed in your resume or activity list. It could be a challenge you faced in achieving what you've achieved. It could just be a pivotal moment in your life when you realize that the goal that's animating you is really your calling. It should be something that only you can write, and you should write it specifically for this question in Booth. You shouldn't repeat or merely rehash events discussed elsewhere unless you can go into much more depth on those events. And you should not cut or paste, cut and paste, Harvard's essay or Stanford's What Matters Most to You and Why. In order to respond to this essay, do your homework about Booth. The essay requires an essay that is specific to Chicago Booth. Let's go on to the optional. Is there any additional information that you would like the admissions committee to know? If so, please address it in the optional essay, which has a 300 words maximum. This is an opportunity for you to provide context for something that may not reflect well on you, or showcase another element of your background or experience that you really want Booth to know about. Whatever you do, again, don't waste time just telling them what they can find elsewhere in the application or writing about significant events. Don't even think about writing a grand summary. This should be additional information. It could be an obstacle overcome, a part of your personal background that is unusual and its impact upon your candidacy, or perhaps circumstances surrounding a personal achievement that you didn't have room to provide elsewhere. Something in the application, it could also be something in the application that might leave a doubt or cause the reader to have a question. If there is something like that in your application, address it here. If your grades dipped in your junior year, let them know why. Well, I was in a car accident. I hope it's not true. If there was a death in the family, whatever it was. If your current supervisor isn't writing your letter of recommendation, that might be something that you want to share here, and they actually ask you to discuss it here. And that leads us to recommenders. Okay, Booth has 2 letters of recommendation, and they prefer that the first one be from your current supervisor, but they understand if you're not comfortable asking your current supervisor. And they have a whole bunch of other instructions. Again, read them there. The second letter can be professional in nature or from an organization, club, or volunteer project that you've been active in. They are seeking different perspectives on your skills from people who can assess your strengths and weaknesses. My 2 criteria for choosing a letter of recommender are 1, you want 2 people who know you well and can write from personal experience about your qualifications. In other words, don't go for the higher up that you shook hands with one time. 2, you want people who are willing and able to write a strong, positive letter of recommendation for you. If there's any hesitation, move on. We do have online, and again, we'll send you the URL, 10 tips for recommenders. You're welcome to refer your recommenders to this URL. As I've done throughout this webinar, encourage them to write in specifics, concrete examples, and focus on leadership, analytical inquiry, collaborative work ethic, and impact. And you'll see that if you would go to that URL. Booth also asks why you chose these recommenders. Answer succinctly, but give them some sense of the nature of your professional relationship with the recommender, and if possible, also let them know why this person is qualified to comment on you in relation to other pre-MBAs, or their ability to evaluate leaders or people with the qualities that Booth seeks. And again, warning, don't be seduced by title in choosing your recommenders. Booth isn't. Go for people who know you well. The interview. Whoa, you got an invitation? Great, congratulations. What can you expect? Well, interviews at Booth are conducted by admissions staff, students, or alumni. They are blind interviews, and all the interviewer knows is what's in the resume that you hand him. Booth's advice in an online chat was, be authentic, transparent, and have a thorough understanding of why you wish to go to Booth. So review those notes or that essay. Know how you intend, this is me now, know how you intend to use the Booth experience and education to achieve your goals. Again, that was the second part of my framework. Know what appeals to you about the Booth community and approach to MBA education. How should you prepare? I suggest that you review GMAT Club and Beat the GMAT threads when you interview so that you can see interview feedback. Review your application before you interview because that's where you already put some of this information. Prepare to explore your past experiences to show fit with Booth's values and criteria. And I would suggest that you list curriculum, community, career, go to this page and look at the values that are there, write them down, and then list experiences or achievements that reveal the values that Booth is looking for. That's on one, let's say, page or spreadsheet. And then on another page or spreadsheet, write down the things that you're proud of. your achievements, whether they're professional or non-professional, and write down what qualities they reveal. And that way you can kind of go either way. You'll be prepared to answer, to discuss experiences that you want to reveal in terms of Booth's criteria. You'll also be prepared to answer questions about leadership, uh, whatever they're asking about. You can be sure about leadership or why you want to go to Booth, or walk me through your resume, any of that kind of question. And then, okay. Now, again, I strongly encourage you to review these criteria before you work on your application. And finally, for the interview, just go back one point. Prepare questions to ask about Booth and about the alumnus's experience before or at Booth. If it's an alum, if it's a student, obviously you can ask about their experience to date. Make sure the questions you are asking are not like on the first or second page of the Booth website. Let's go back to your goal in submitting an application to Booth, and that's to show that you belong at Booth. And we're going to have a contest now. I think it's going to be really easy to win. The first 3 to answer this question in total are going to get a free copy of MBA Admissions for Smarties, which is the book that I co-authored a few years ago with Judy Gruen. It's paperback or Kindle in the United States, and paperback, Kindle only outside the United States. So the question is, and again, please answer in the question window all elements of the answer. What are the 3 C's of Booth criteria as they evaluate your application? What are Booth's criteria? All right, Marquetta, you got it. Abhishank, you got it. And Alana, you got it. All right. Rachel, did you get the names? Yeah. Okay, most of you got that. Yeah, that was a real easy one. I admit it. That was really easy, but it's also very important that you understand that. Okay, so Marquetta, Abhishank, and Alana, you got copy of MBA Admissions for Smarties. We'll be in touch with you. I believe all of you are outside the United States, so it's going to be Kindle for all of you. Let's go through the 4 parts of the framework again. Show you belong at, that you're going to need to show that you belong at Booth. First one, show you can do the work, the academics. 2, reveal a realistic, attainable goal that's still ambitious and that requires an MBA from Booth. Show that you meet Booth's criteria and share its values, and then demonstrate that you'll be able to contribute distinctively to class discussions and teamwork, the school's community, and ultimately make the school proud. Final word of advice, admissions committee readers are sharp, intelligent professionals. Don't try to trick, fake, or fool. Again, makeup just doesn't work effectively, or as effectively as we want it to. The best presentation of you is an authentic reflection of your achievement and dreams, keeping in mind the 4 parts of the framework that will make Booth want you. Now, Accepted wants to help you show you belong at Booth. In this webinar, I've given you a comprehensive approach to getting accepted to Chicago Booth. I've also given you the reason each part of the 4-part framework is necessary for acceptance. What I can't give you is the how, or at least how to apply this framework to your individual situation, helping you to produce that authentic reflection of your unique dreams and achievements. That requires individual advising with an experienced, accepted MBA admissions consultant. We want to guide you in showing that you both belong at Chicago Booth or the other MBA programs you're aiming for and stand out in the applicant pool. And we've advised thousands of successful applicants over our 20-plus years in business to create applications that accomplish everything we discussed here today. And we know it's not easy. It's hard to juggle work, life, family, community service, and applications. It's hard to know where to apply and how to apply. We get it, though I know that most of you really want to go to Booth. We've been there many, many times. Now, if you engage with Accepted, here's what you get. Access to expertise and experience that comes from decades on both sides of the admissions desk. That's what our staff has. The confidence that comes when you know you're working with a seasoned, dedicated, top-notch pro. Options to choose from that fit your needs so you save time and apply effectively. And a comprehensive approach that allows you to show you belong at Booth. Now, some may say that Accepted seems expensive, and we're definitely not a cheap service because of the quality of our staff. But our fees are peanuts compared to the cost of an MBA, and furthermore, there are expensive and less obvious risks associated with not using Accepted. Reapplication can easily cost you a couple $1,000s. One additional year of pre-MBA earnings can cost you in the 5 figures easily. If you dislike your job, you may have 1 more year of it. And then there's a potential that you could have gotten into a better program with lifelong higher earnings and a superior network. I'll let you calculate that cost. Every year, we work with client applicants who talked to us a year earlier, and now we're getting calls from applicants who are choosing to work with us round 2 because they got rejected round 1. And they've decided, after taking the do-it-yourself approach and seeing that it didn't work, to work with us. They would have been better off working with us initially, and so would you. But enough from me. What do accepted clients say? I just wanted to drop you a note that I've been accepted to Wharton, Booth, and Yale this year for MBA admissions. I want to thank you for your firm's terrific service, and particularly send my appreciation to Natalie, who has absolutely been the most fantastic MBA admissions consultant I have worked with. Or if you look over here, I want to thank you, Esmeralda, for all your help. I couldn't have done it without you, except to Booth and Columbia. I am really happy. I would like to thank Jennifer once again for her wonderful guidance, without which this would not have been possible. And there are testimonials for every single one of our consultants. Here's what I would like you to do after the Q&A. It's now November. We can still work with you on your Booth application for the round 2 deadline, January 3rd. Contact us ASAP, and we'd be happy to help you from scratch or review and edit your essays. Our goal is to guide you so that you present all 4 parts of the critical framework that I've presented today, and show that you both belong at Chicago Booth and are a standout in the applicant pool. Take these steps, every one of them, to work with an accepted MBA admissions consultant and have the kind of experience and success that the clients here enjoyed. Now, I promised you at the beginning a special offer. I mentioned it then. I'm going to reiterate it now. If you choose to work with us on a comprehensive approach, which is our MBA application packages, you can get $300 off any MBA application package. The coupon code is SAVE300, and this offer ends November 15th. So you have a week to talk to a consultant and decide if you want to go forward. But before you leave, let's have that Q&A. And I'm actually happy to say that I've been joined by Cindy Tokamitsu and Jennifer Bloom. Cindy Tokamitsu has been guiding Accepted's clients to Accepted at top MBA programs since 1998. And I believe Jennifer Bloom also joined Accepted in 1998. And she too has been guiding Accepted's MBA clients to acceptance at top MBA programs. But we're glad to have Cindy and Jennifer. Welcome. And now for your questions. Should we address low GMAT scores directly in the optional essay? This is from Alana. Alana, do you mind sharing how low, or if not, that we might take that offline? Oh, 40 in quant. Oh, it's 700 total. All right, so it's a little low, 40 in quant and 47 in verbal. I don't know, Jennifer, Alana? Jennifer is actually located in Israel. What would you say?
First of all, Ilana is from a unique background because she's Israeli, and not many Israelis apply. So there is a potential of standing out. Right. I definitely think they're going to be concerned about the quant, though. A 40 quant would make them worry that you can't handle the very rigorous program. So you have a few options. I would certainly suggest that you could retake the GMAT. There are a lot of questions that come into mind, you know, obviously, how old are you? How many years of work experience are we already talking about? Whether it makes sense to put off the application for a year? Is there any other evidence of very strong quant background? Were you ill, or did something happen the day of the GMAT test? I mean, there are many, many factors that could potentially alleviate their concern. And I would certainly, if you have any of those factors to refer to, I certainly would say go ahead and do that. But my main advice would be to strongly consider retaking the GMAT, even if it happens after you submit the application, just to prove that you have the potential. Because the 700 is an acceptable score to them, but I don't know that they're going to be able to get over the concern that you won't be able to do the actual work.
Cindy, do you want to add to that?
I would agree with Jennifer, and just in terms of, you know, I think you asked whether you should write about it in the optional. I mean, I would say it depends, and it depends on how, if there are other factors, as Jennifer said, that indicate quantitative ability. I mean, I really think when I see something like that, it's always my first question is, so how did you do in your quant courses, if any, in university? So I think you have to look at it holistically. It's not just a black and white, should you or shouldn't you, which is probably not the easiest answer to have. But
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of the can you turn, yeah, okay. Somebody's speakers are giving feedback. It's a little bit, I would agree with Jennifer that the 40 quant is going to cause concern, and there are a lot of questions, I think, going through all three of our minds as we look at it. There are some things that could mitigate, but that's going to be an issue. But thanks for the question, and thanks for sharing the numbers with us. Let's go on. All right, Benoit is asking, any specific advice for folks with 12 plus years of experience trying for a full-time MBA? Cindy, you want to take that one?
Sure, that's also a challenge, but I think the key there is a couple of things. First of all, you really need to make the case. The burden is on you to make the case, really, why you need to do the full-time MBA now and why it's the right time. And also, when you talk about your post-MBA goals, you have to merely, don't talk about goals where the average age, or where it's expected that someone's going to be hiring, like a 27 or 28-year-old, like some of the consulting firms will look for like a class and they'll hire a certain age group. And I think you need to really also indicate when you discuss goals, or perhaps in an optional if you don't have room, that you understand that there's a hurdle, and here's how you plan, here's how you're going to get that post-MBA position, that you really, just have that plan in mind.
Okay, great. Do you want to add anything to that? Jennifer, do you want to add anything to that?
The only thing I would add to that is to say that there are some programs that are designed for older applicants, more experienced people, because the reality is if you've got 12 years of work experience, you don't necessarily want to be in a classroom with someone with 4. They don't have the maturity you have. They're not at the same place in their life and their career. And you really, even though, obviously it's a great program in terms of the relationships you're going to build, these people are essentially 8 years younger than you, and just in different places in their life, and not necessarily really the right people for you to be in the program with. So there are programs that are designed for older applicants in Europe and the States, and so I would certainly want to discuss those potential options. But I definitely agree with what Cindy's talking about. Goals will certainly play a part in that. If you're someone from, for example, a family business, wanting to continue in a family business, so then having 12 years of experience isn't necessarily going to be the same strike against you as if you are, wanting to go into one of these entry-level consulting roles.
Right. I would agree with everything that Cindy and Jennifer had said in terms of programs that may be more interested in you. I'd look at the Sloan Fellows programs, perhaps IMD's MBA program, which has I think the average age is 31. So you're dealing with more experienced people. I think INSEAD also has a higher average age, but I'm not sure. I think 12 years would probably still be the upper end for that one. And then the Stanford MSX program. But these are all, especially the Sloan Fellows programs, very, very competitive programs. And again, they are geared towards more experienced people. Okay, let's see what other questions we have here. I think I'm gonna take this one. Is it possible to write short-term goals to become investment manager and long-term work for society as both contradict in their values? How will we articulate this? I don't believe that's a very compelling goal. Certainly the long-term goal is really, really general, and there's a problem if you feel that your short-term goal, investment manager, somehow is going to detract from society. There's a real, you're not presenting your short, if you believe they're in conflict, there's a real problem. In addition, long-term goal of work for society is just way too general. I think I made that point earlier in the webinar that you need to be more specific. It's pie in the sky in American terms. So no, I don't think that's a well-articulated goal at all. If you want to work as an investment manager, hopefully you'd be an ethical investment manager that would contribute to the betterment of society. And in addition, once you could either say you want to later retire and work for a specific cause that you care about, or that, when, at some point in your career, you'd hope you have the time to work for this particular cause in addition to your investment management. But the way you formulated it, I would discourage it. Cindy, Jennifer, do you have anything to add? I'm going to unmute you now.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. So go ahead, Jennifer. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Cindy. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I really just agree with Linda that, they have to be much more specific, and sometimes with a little probing, goals that seem on the surface contradictory are not necessarily so contradictory, but the fact that you see them as contradictory would raise a flag to me. So I would need to explore further, and really see what the story is.
Yeah. Jennifer?
The only thing I wanted to add, I think I've seen this before where people, really want to spend like the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years making a couple $1 million or a couple $100 million, and then leave the financial industry, the intensity of it, and do something more philanthropic. I don't see it as contradictory. I just see it as not necessarily what the school means when they're talking about your long-term goals. In terms of the actual goals essay itself. I think also it's very important to point out that, it's not going to seem realistic that you're going to leave your finance track if you've never done much philanthropic work throughout your career or up until now. So if that's something that you really do aspire to do, I don't think it's necessarily for the goals essay, but it certainly could be in something like the optional essay, really reflecting on the philanthropic work you've been doing throughout your life, and how you're hoping to continue to apply the skills that you gain in the MBA program to those efforts, and in the longer term, how you're planning on, really continuing to make that kind of impact on the world. Okay,
great. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, so Shank asks, not sure if my question went, all right. My GMAT score is 49, quant score is 49. But I attended topmost undergrad at engineering college and worked in analytics for 2 years, and my GRE quant is 97th percentile. Then I guess the 49 is the 75th percentile. Does that cover up for relatively low quant score in the GMAT? In other words, is a GRE going to cover up for the GMAT? And his total GMAT is 730, and he would prefer to report the GMAT. So you actually want to report both. And you're hoping that the GRE score is going to quote unquote make up for the GRE. I believe Abhishank is located in India, and Jennifer, why don't you start with this one?
I would say that there's a real challenge for Indian applicants. They look at that 49 quant and they don't have a doubt that you can do the work. That's the reality. You can do the work. You're totally qualified. It's what Linda was talking about earlier, that they have an abundance of qualified applicants. The 49 quant, what's going to be the big hindrance there is how this affects the schools simply have to report the average GMAT, and it's very much used in the rankings. So as an Indian applicant, you're really, as all Asian applicants, frankly, are really looked to boost that average. And so, first of all, the 730 overall is a solid score, so I wouldn't be concerned about that per se. Again, this is a situation where it sounds like he only has 2 years of work experience, and I think that is the biggest hindrance there, because 2 years of work experience is on the young side. There are some programs that are, Harvard, for example, and Stanford, they do like young applicants, but not Chicago Booth. So I would say for someone with only 2 years of work experience,
actually,
go ahead and...
He just posted that he has 7 years of work experience.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard you say 7. I said 2. Sorry.
He said 2 in analytics, but apparently there was 5 years. I'm guessing there was 5 years before.
Oh, okay. Fine. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
So my point is that the 49 doesn't indicate in any way that there's a challenge or a problem with his quant skills. I think really the only issue is, as an Indian applicant, he is would possibly be a little bit lower. Like if he took the GMAT again, would he be able to boost the score? But I think again that the 730 is actually a fine score. I wouldn't be concerned about that.
Cindy?
And yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Hi. And I would say ditto. And then the challenge, as Jennifer was alluding to, being in a very competitive demographic, that just, go like push it to, your absolute, I guess, best, your absolute limit in terms of looking for ways to differentiate yourself, really drilling into your work. And, it doesn't mean again, as Linda said, you don't have to have climbed Mount Everest. I don't mean that, but just really show something special about yourself, your insight, the nature of your work and what you have to think about it and say about it. I mean, luckily, Booth, that application and that essay do give you opportunities to really kind of go for it and really show a perspective and show that you've got something to say and really stand out. So that's, my extra 2 cents there.
Yeah, I would hold on a second here. I would agree with that. I think your challenge is going to be not focusing on the GMAT or GRE. That nobody's going to have any questions with that you can do the work. They're going to want to know, what are you going to add over people with similar backgrounds that are applying? Okay, you're not going to add a higher average GMAT so that they look better. You're going to have to add something else. And that's going to be going back to how you describe your experiences, your contribution, your impact, your initiative, all those kinds of things. Okay? Let's see what else we have here. You're welcome. All right. We got another one. How do I explain, this is from Chingatai, how do I explain leaving my job to focus on a startup that is still in the very early stages with no hard data to show success? I'll tell you what, Cindy, you want to take that first?
Yeah, I guess that immediately raises a question in my mind. If you're just starting up a business, that's such a consuming activity. How, if I were the AdCom, I'd be thinking, like, aside from how you're explaining it, which, obviously you presumably have a good reason for wanting to do that, but like, how are you going to be doing that and going to school full time? So that would be like an immediate sort of bell going off in my head as if I were looking at it from the AdCom's view.
Okay. And let's see. Jennifer, do you want to add something to that? Wait a minute. I'm not. Yeah, there you go.
No, I agree with Cindy. It's a big question mark. Why did you join something that is, requires such passion and dedication? And of course, a startup is going to take longer than just some short-term window, to be able to prove impact. It's certainly, I'm not saying a person can't be accepted, because it could very well be that there's previous impact that they could point to. But the storyline would have to be very clear about why they went ahead and joined the startup when they knew they were planning on attending the MBA soon.
Right, and I agree with what Cindy and Jennifer said. I'd like to add that in terms of showing the kind of impact that we've been talking about, I think you'd need to focus on your previous job, right? You left your job because you wanted to have the startup experience, presumably before taking your MBA. You have every intention of leaving it to go to the MBA, but you wanted the startup experience, would be my guess. That's what's going on. But in order to show impact and achievement, you have to focus on your previous job and what you accomplished there to show that you are that kind of person. That would be my addition. Okay. I have a last thought for you before you leave. But before I get to that, I want to mention that if you have additional questions, you can please post them to our blog, exhibit.com/booth2017-2017. Again, if you have additional questions or questions that we haven't answered here, because we didn't get to all of them, it's exhibit.com/booth2017. I also want to thank you very, very much for coming, for your time, your questions, your attention. You have a lot of options out there, and I really appreciate the fact that you decided to spend this time with us. And now a final thought and story. The thought, there is a paradox at the heart of the MBA application process for top programs like Booth, and that is that you have to fit in and stand out. We've been kind of dancing around that paradox, I think, here during the webinar. By fitting in, I mean that you belong at your target school, in this case, Chicago Booth. And that's in terms of your goals, your academics, your work experience, and values. That you're going to be a valuable member of Booth's community. And if you think about it, that's parts 1 through 3 of my framework. But standing out, you need to stand out in a highly qualified, intensely competitive, and talented applicant pool. That's actually what most of the questions have been devoted to. That's part 4 of the framework. Show that you're going to contribute distinctively that unique perspective and add a special something to the community. To get a little bit poetic, admissions committees look at their class like a mosaic or perhaps a needlepoint, and each individual student has to add a particular thread or stone, and they have to add that unique shade or color to the overall picture. But there's no need to navigate this paradox alone. We're here to guide you to acceptance. And here's one story of one client. This one from a client who came to us very frustrated and discouraged. I want to take a moment to let you know how great of an experience I've had working with Natalie. The first company I spoke with was an absolute disaster. I was told that I had a weak profile in so many words, and that I needed to set my sights on lower tier schools. My conversation with Natalie was completely different. Natalie was warm and friendly and encouraging. We talked about the strengths and weaknesses of my profile, and she eventually recommended that my reach school from the other consultant should be my backup school. While I still haven't fully decided on which school I'm going to attend, I have options available to me in top 20 programs with major scholarships, and I likely will be taking a spot at Booth, something I never thought would be possible when I first started looking at MBA programs. Now, this was an Indian male applicant who first contacted us with a 650 GMAT score. We advised him to prepare again and retake. He did. We helped him to show that he both fits in and stands out at Booth, and needless to say, he has had outstanding ROI on his investment in accepted services. So if you want a reliable guide on this journey who will kindly give you insightful, trustworthy, and necessary feedback to help you get into your favorite schools and pursue your dream career, follow the steps on the screen, which are the steps taken by all the clients you've heard from. You've heard from several clients who sought acceptance help and successfully navigated that paradox to acceptance. They applied confidently and successfully. They're now pursuing their dreams. Follow their well-trodden path. Take the steps on the screen as they did and pursue your dreams too.